The irony of Event Horizon is the fact that the film flopped when it hit the theaters 30 years ago. The reviews were so roaringly negative that nobody could have imagined this movie would ever have the chance to become a cult classic someday. Luckily, through very strong sales on home videos and a word-of-mouth praise for the movie's truly unnerving hell in space concept, people found themselves drawn to the refreshing premise of Event Horizon. More so, it is also the whole fascination around the ultra-violent director's cut that has been famously lost after the studio forced Paul W.S. Anderson to trim almost 30 minutes of graphic gore after the film's brutal test screenings. Ever since then, the world has been racking their brain trying to decode the mystery of the gravity drive, the Event Horizon, and the demon that plagues her. Lucky for us, IDW Publishing and Christian Ward took it upon themselves to unearth this mystery of this underrated masterpiece of a horror movie by first giving us that banger of a prequel comic last year with Event Horizon Dark Descent, and now a terrifying sequel that debuted in April under the title Event Horizon Inferno. As the sequel keeps pushing into unexplained territory, Event Horizon is clearly heading back into the darkness after a rich billionaire named Daniel Durante hired the tank tops to salvage what's left of the cursed ship. Rob Carey's art beautifully depicts the cosmic nightmare of how the ship has used a 232-year-old Lieutenant M.L. Starck to keep breathing. And now that Daniel has brought in his ex-wife Skylar as a trauma bomb to fuel the Event Horizon, the ship itself has taken the reign of the story in the 4th issue in order to create a personalized hellscape for everyone aboard. So without wasting another moment, let's discuss what happens in the 4th issue of Event Horizon Inferno. Before I get to the meatier part of this video, let's recap the previous issue a bit. So the 3rd issue of Event Horizon actually proved that hell is a constant loop as we find out exactly how Starck has been alive for 232 years in a ship of nightmares. Apparently, the Event Horizon has exposed her to the worst kinds of horror, and because the Lieutenant does not have any personal demons of her own, the Event Horizon kept sending real demons to torment her. But Starck has been killing these things for what seems like an eternity, and so the ordeal is getting a bit too tedious for her. That is why at one point she let herself get eaten by one of the demons, as we see strong, jagged teeth biting her head off. But of course, the Event Horizon refused to let her die, as Starck needed to stay alive in order for the ship to stay alive. And so the ship turned Starck's hell into a loop, as she was stuck with the same tableau of seeing Captain Miller die over and over again. The ship kept making her relive the good moments only for it to end with Captain Miller burning right in front of her own eyes. But Starck knew that the Event Horizon was desperately looking for misery and trauma to nourish itself. Moreover, through the 200 years of mental and physical torment that the ship subjected her through, Dr. Weir always came back to haunt Starck in places that he was not even supposed to be. We also find out what happened to Cooper, whose unfettered optimism initially made it difficult for him to accept that they were stuck in a loop of horror. Apparently, he was the first to try and leave the ship, and while he did get out, Cooper died while floating across the endless horizon of space. After Cooper left, the ship made it harder for Starck to escape by altering the geography of the ship. However, as the years progressed, the Event Horizon grew weaker as it no longer had fresh trauma to sustain it. And so both Starck and the ship fell into a sort of sleep, which really felt like the sweet release of darkness. Sadly, that was derailed when the tank tops showed up with Skylar, as it not only woke up Starck but also brought life back into the Event Horizon. In the present day, Sergeant Rob Crowley, Starck, and Skylar try their best to make it out of the ship, while fighting 2 skulled demons on the way. Meanwhile, we find out that Private Bill Huxton and Private Koji Endo are still alive inside the Event Horizon, and are desperately trying to override its navigation system. After making fruitless efforts to contact the Virgil, they had started sensing that something was off with their mission, and before they could do much about it, Daniel and Annabelle also decided to step into the Event Horizon once they were approaching the orbit of Neptune. Daniel has been waiting decades to reach the precipice of hell, and in the most spine-chilling scene of the comic issue, he claims how he can finally sense his twin brother. Once again, through a reflection on the glass, we see the same dark demonic angel with wings and glowing red eyes hold on to him, thus emphasizing how Daniel is nothing but a pawn. Similar to Dr. Weir. He then asks Annabelle to bring the ship closer to the Event Horizon so they can step aboard. Daniel creepily appreciates the ship's beauty by touching her surface and tells Annabelle how she is a cathedral of hell and they shall worship her. The comic then takes us back to Starck, Rob, and Skylar as they are trying to find their escape route. While Rob and Skylar do not understand how a ship can be sentient, Starck explains how something is beyond comprehension, because all they can do is fear them. Before you know it, the next panel gives us a bloody version of what seems to be Dr. Weir, as the ship figures out that the lieutenant has a personal demon after all. As the three run towards the bridge, Captain Miller's burning face pops up like a vision, blaming Starck for running away and emphasizing on how she should have sacrificed her life instead of him. The final page of the comic ends with the gravity drive starting up as the ship goes into the Chaos Realm. The third issue of Event Horizon Inferno ends as a spider-like form of a bloody Dr. Weir walks out of the black hole of the gravity drive and claims how the ship will be whole again very soon. Now, the fourth issue of Event Horizon Inferno proves that the Event Horizon is more than a ship, as the reins of the story gets handed over to the sentient vessel that comes alive by the end. The comic opens with a hyper-vigilant Private Bill Huxton and Private Koji Endo, who are being haunted by the screams of everyone who died inside the ship. After realizing that Daniel Durante had set them up for a kind of death, they both agree on a full-blown self-preservation mode in order to make it out alive of this hellscape. But the issue is, due to the altering geography of the ship, Bill and Endo are walking the same path as the literal walls of the ship seem to be moving. As Bill labels the event horizon as a haunted house in space, they are interrupted by Daniel and Annabelle. According to Daniel, this beautiful ship has been hurting for a very long time, and she needs his help to feel whole again. Yeah, that doesn't sound creepy at all. Anyway, as Endo encourages Bill to think for themselves first, Daniel keeps ruminating on how two halves of the ship have been longing for each other for a very long time, and it is on him to join them. As Daniel says, the two parts of the ship are women, and sometimes you gotta let them talk it out. So he commands his AI-driven robot, Annabelle, to help the ship with the same. Apparently, hell was waiting for them, and so Daniel wanted to reach out to the other half and convince her to open the door from the other side of the gravity drive. But after hearing Daniel's crazy talk, Bill advises him against making another move. However, the irony is none of the tank tops have the privilege of any agency here, as Daniel owned them. When Endo curses the man and threatens to shoot its head off, Daniel finally shows what he is really capable of by clicking on a red button on his wrist to resolve the situation at hand. What comes next is a shock to us all, as Endo ends up blowing off Bill's head instead, thus proving that they really were at the mercy of Daniel's command. Endo is naturally traumatized by what the evil billionaire just made him do, and is stunned to find out that even his body now belongs to Daniel, which means if the man commanded Endo to smile, that is what his cybernetic enhancement is programmed to make him do. We then shift back to Annabelle trying to make contact with the ship, and before you know it, she finds herself inside the mind of the event horizon, thus proving that the ship was always sentient. Now, the real shocker comes when the mind of the ship ends up overpowering Annabelle, as her AI consciousness is sucked into it, thus allowing the event horizon to have full access to her mind. With what seems to be the core of the ship's mind in the background, Annabelle finds herself lost as the event horizon itself asks her to identify herself. When she mentions how she is only here to help the ship feel whole again, Annabelle starts feeling something tugging towards her, and before you know it, she gets zapped into some unknown place where she is surrounded with nothing but darkness. The next 2 pages of the comic is nothing but Annabelle going into a full-blown panic while floating in pitch-black darkness. She keeps calling out to Daniel for help, but a strange voice tells her that there was no point, as Daniel could not hear her. For now, it was just the ship and her. With bloodshot eyes, Annabelle asks if she was speaking to the event horizon herself, and that is how we learn that this is more than a ship. From the looks of it, it seems like the ship then peers into Annabelle's mind and unlocks the repressed memory of what seems to be her childhood. Honestly speaking, getting an origin story of Daniel's AI robot partner was not on my bingo card for this issue, but that is exactly what makes the story so much better. As a young Annabelle asks her papa to read her a bedtime story, we realize that the man reading out the story of Pinocchio was actually Daniel. Yeah, the man is clearly a pervert. Anyway, a young Annabelle then asks her papa if she was a real girl, and to this Daniel cryptically responds how he has done everything to make her real, which means he has even given her real memories. This almost seems to be a fever dream sponsored to Annabelle by the ship, just so she understands how she has been trained and groomed since the very beginning. As Daniel's lies grew bigger, so did his nose, and that is the irony of a man reading the story of Pinocchio to an artificial intelligence child while assuring her that she was a real girl. Even then, it is the next page of the comic that truly horrified me, as the madness of the event horizon takes over young Annabelle's childhood bedroom. As a bloody version of what again seems to be Dr. Weir appears to be sitting on the chair facing her bed. While holding the gravity drive, the blood-covered man tells Annabelle how Daniel was a bad man, as he never intended to build her with love. Of course, Annabelle does not like what was happening to her, as she was forced to face her reality, which was built to cater the will of one man. She screams for Daniel and begs him to help her wake up, as her consciousness was still stuck inside her younger self. As she grasps for control, Dr. Weir appears again with his eyeless and scratched up face. Annabelle then finds her younger self present during the time Dr. Weir had first presented the gravity drive to the General, almost 200 years ago. It is then the mind of the Event Horizon herself that explains how humans always address their ships to be a woman due to the simplicity of a man's mind. As the Event Horizon states, a mother always carries her boys safely through a harsh world, and so every crew that came aboard the Event Horizon also believed her to be their mother, until of course she decided against it. The artwork here is absolutely mesmerizing, as the comic panel connects itself to crew we met during the events of Event Horizon Dark Descent, including the monstrous blob with many mouths that took out most of the crew. There is also a shot of the King of Chaos, Paimon, with his eyeless red face and jagged teeth, as the ship explains how she refused to be a mother after the Demon King gave her life and agency. In the next page, we witness the physical manifestation of the mind of the Event Horizon, as she sits on a throne with wires and bloody red vein-like tendrils attached to her body. She has glowing red eyes and a cybernetic body covered in steel in places. As Annabelle watches the gigantic form of the ship in awe, Weir's demon form gets down on his knees and revels at how magnificent she really is. This manifestation of the Event Horizon is the voice that Annabelle has been hearing after she was pulled into the ship's mind. The comic makes it very clear at this point that the Event Horizon is a hungry god waiting to be worshipped, and the only way to do that is to keep feeding it with pain, trauma, misery, and disdain. Even if man built the ship to be one thing, she chose the agency to become another. Following this, in a mesmerizing shot, the cybernetic manifestation of the Event Horizon leans towards Annabelle like a god and asks her what purpose was she built for. When she responds how she was built to be herself, the sentient Event Horizon gives her a reality check on how her head was full of lies. We then find out that Daniel has been making changes and upgrades on Annabelle since forever. She was never his first robot, and she will not be his last. The ship then asks what Daniel's purpose could be for Annabelle. The easy answer to her would be knowledge, companionship, or maybe even pleasure. But no, it was actually his hubris and his sadism that made Daniel come back to keep making enhancements and changes within her until he could mold her into becoming what he wanted her to be. Annabelle never had any agency of her own, only the illusion of it. After learning the truth of her existence, Annabelle's red-shot eyes turn black as she hears Daniel's voice asking her if she could successfully make the connection with the ship's mind. He then insists to her that she connect the ship's other half with the gravity drive, and that is exactly what she does. As Weir's spider form lurks around the gravity drive, Annabelle activates it, and a strange light pours out of it. Weir simply revels at the sight, probably because for 200 years the ship has looked forward to this, and so has Paimon. As the drive activates, Starck looks out in absolute horror of what is about to unfold, as the ship is about to pass through the gateway after the gravity drive folds space by puncturing a hole through the continuum so that the two endpoints could coexist in the same space and time. Starck knew what hell awaited them if the ship ended up successfully passing through the gateway, and so she explained to Rob and Skylar that the only way to save themselves would be by getting to the bridge that was connected to the Virgil as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Annabelle has zapped her consciousness back into her own body, and this time we see Endo on his knees as she is holding a gun to his head. But when Daniel asks her to dispose him off, she hesitates at the sight of Endo begging for his life as the words of the Event Horizon reverberate within her, questioning if her agency is really her own. Something has clearly changed in Annabelle, as she does not seem to be that ruthless anymore. And when Daniel commands her to kill Endo for a second time, she straight up says no. Annabelle finally stands up to the man who has groomed her for his own benefit since forever, and tells him that she would no longer serve as his weapon. When Annabelle tells him that she is leaving, Daniel only laughs at her and assures her how it was a bit too late for that, as there is no going home now. The comic ends as the gateway activates and the event horizon is inches away from going through. However, this time it is not a black hole, but rather the entire scene is drenched in red as bloody tendrils pull the ship inside the gateway and red thunder strikes across the event horizon. From the looks of this, I doubt anyone is getting out of the event horizon, especially because this never had the potential for anything remotely close to a happy ending. Having said that, Event Horizon Inferno still has a lot of loopholes, and I really hope the next issues will answer our questions, especially the ones on payment. Now, do you guys think Daniel understands what he has gotten himself into? Will he really be reunited with his brother on the other side? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box below.